I feel like it's been a lot of work to be on the journey, but I'm so thankful that I kept coming back, even when I was frustrated.
You're listening to the Mindful Mama podcast, episode number 345. This is a special bonus episode about mindful parenting in Texas with Carrie Henry. Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast. Here it's about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have, and when you have calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clark Fields. I help smart, thoughtful parents stay calm so they can have strong, connected relationships with their children. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of Mindful Parenting, and I'm the author of the best-selling book, Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. Hey, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here for this special bonus episode. But listen, if you haven't done so yet, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you've ever gotten any value from this podcast, please go over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review. It just helps the podcast grow more. It just takes a minute of your time, and it is so appreciated. It really makes a difference. I really appreciate it. Today, I'm sitting down with Carrie Henry, and Carrie is a pediatric occupational therapist and mom of 3. She lives with her husband, who's a pediatrician, in Mount Pleasant, Texas, with her 2 dogs, who have as strong opinions as she and her children do. So Carrie is a graduate of the Mindful Parenting Teacher Training Program, and she is an awesome mindful parenting teacher, bringing it into her community in Texas, which is so exciting. We're going to talk about how she was parented, conscious discipline. We're going to talk about community skills. There's so much here about her own journey and takeaway. So there's so much here. I can't wait for you to dive into this conversation. And if you are interested in the Mindful Parenting Teacher Training Program, if you want to bring the Mindful Parenting course to your community, maybe you're an OT or a teacher or a therapist or a doula, or you're just maybe really passionate about parenting, then you might be perfect for this teacher training. It's a 5-month intensive program, can be done from anywhere around the world, and we give you everything you need to bring mindful parenting to your community. So to learn more and apply to the program, go to mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. That's mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. Now join me at the table as I talk to Carrie Henry. I have talked to you like this over Zoom many times, but I'm so excited to talk to you about it. Talk to you in this context, and you're like in the middle of your practicum, right?
Yes, I've completed the 3rd session.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. All right, we'll talk about that another time because you're right in the middle of it. But you're in the mindful parenting teacher training, but I've known you through a number of different contexts. You were in mindful parenting, we did coaching together, but I'm curious, I want to know and share with the listener, like, what attracted you to mindful parenting in the beginning, to begin with?
Well, I was pregnant with my 3rd child, and I was feeling really out of control. I had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, or almost 2 and almost 4-year-old at the time. And I was like, this is not going to go well. Like, when I have this 3rd child, it's already not going well with these 2. So I don't even know what I'm going to do with this 3rd. And I mean, it was a planned pregnancy. I planned it, but then I was just really feeling really stressed out. And so I attended a conference for conscious discipline. And so I needed continuing education credits for my job as an occupational therapist. And so I just kind of found something that I thought might help me as a parent as well. And so there was so much information that was just all brand new to me. So like deep breathing and managing your own stress response and learning about the brain state model, all of that was like brand new information. And so then I came home and they give you lots of skills and some scripts to use. And so I came home and I was so excited to try these skills with my children. And it didn't work, it was kind of like, oh, and it was like, I believed in it and it was all research and science based. So I knew deep down that there was something to it, but I just couldn't make it work for my life. And so then listening to one of your podcasts, when you always say the thing about, you could read all the parenting books and I already had read all the parenting books, but unless you have your own stress response under control, you really can't put that stuff into practice. And so I really wanted to put what I had learned into practice. And so I decided to join the mindful parenting membership at that time. And so that gave me, the skills to figure out how to like make things work and to really calm my own stress response. So.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, that happens to a lot of people. I have people who are like, preschool teachers and like, why am I so freaking out with my own children? And, people who teach some kind of things. And it's really different, I think, as we apply it to ourselves, that really personal application of that work is really different. And I'm curious as to you, because, I know you live in Texas, right? Like, and it's I know it's a different scene in Texas than it is from like Seattle or like New York, right?
Yes.
Like it's a different scene. And I'm curious as to like, were some of the things that you were encountering in both the conscious discipline and mindful parenting, were these like was this really different from the way you were raised and how you brought up?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And the other thing is I didn't have any models. I think one of the questions they asked in conscious discipline is, who are your models? Like who can you think of that behaves in these kinds of mindful, thoughtful ways? And I couldn't come up with a single person. And now years later, I still haven't been able to come up with that single person who I had growing up that really modeled any of these skills for me.
Wow.
And so, I grew up with a single mother. And so she had lots of stressors in her life. She was, she had my brother and I when she was really young, and she was pretty reactive. And so, I didn't have that model growing up. And then I can't even think of teachers that did it. And now as a parent, I don't really have many peers that parent in this way. I have, I have some good friends that are far away, but nobody in my, like, that I get to hang out with regularly. I don't get to see this modeled.
Yeah, that's hard because our environment is such a huge influence on us. Like we don't even realize that. We tend to think like, we tend to be great believers in our willpower and just our ability to be like, I will choose to be X way, and then it will be so. And we don't realize like how much social creatures we are, and how our environment, and our upbringing and all of those things, like it's kind of planted these seeds, and we tend to just like kind of rehash these things that have been around us our whole life. So this situation you were in, where is really like no model in your immediate community and your friends and stuff. That's a really hard situation to make change in, I bet.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It's definitely been challenging. And then you see parents, saying like using a threat and then having a kid respond immediately and very compliantly. And meanwhile, my own child might be like flailing about and screaming. And so then it's like, you see these things. And so it makes you question sometimes, like, is this really the right thing? Like, am I doing this right? Like, is this really the way, or is there way better, but I mean, I think I knew always deep down in my heart that that's not how I wanted it to be, but it's definitely hard when you see the kids that really respond well to that kind of model, and then to take the other road.
It's hard to judge our messy insides to somebody's out in public outsides. Have you seen, well, let's talk about that. Like you were really struggling when you came to mindful parenting, and you were pregnant. You were like, oh my God, I want to do these things. What results did you see? Did things change for the better?
They definitely changed for the better. I think it was a little slower going than I had hoped. I kind of wanted this like immediate, like all of a sudden I'm this enlightened, amazing parent, like with these amazing children to prove it. And so I think it was a little frustrating that it was so slow, but I saw small wins throughout the entire process. So, it's been about almost 4 years since I started this whole like journey. And so I feel like I'm definitely now at the point where I can see the more joy and the more compliance, and the kids who seem to really care about my feelings and other people's feelings more than they had before when I was parenting in another way. So I feel like I feel like it's been a lot of work to be on the journey, but I'm so thankful that I kept coming back, even when I was frustrated.
Yeah. And especially in your situation where you were in an environment that did not support the work you were doing, and you were trying to speak this new language, you were probably doing a lot of like in your head translation, and your kids probably had built up some resistance to the old school methods when you started to transform your own responses, I bet.
Yes, for sure.
That can be like a train that's like hard to turn around. You gotta slow it down, get it to stop, and then you have to turn it all the way around. So you're an occupational therapist. I think before I knew you, Carrie, I actually didn't know what an OT was. I've now I now know. Or maybe you can tell the listener, maybe the listener doesn't know. And so maybe you can tell us what that is, and how, and how does that fit in with mindful parenting, or is it completely separate?
Yeah. So in occupational therapy school, we learned that the occupational therapists use occupations as, to help people to achieve their highest quality of life and their highest functioning. And so we define occupations as the things that occupy your time. And so I work mostly with children. And so for children, it's, learning and playing, mostly primarily playing is what I do as an occupational therapist. So I get paid to play with Play-Doh. So it's a pretty cool job.
I have to ask, are you like, my mom was like a nurse, and she had like compassion fatigue by the time she got home to me. do you get like playing fatigue from like,
oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. It's fun to play with the Play-Doh when I'm getting paid to do it. But when I'm coming home and my kids are demanding I play with Play-Doh, or throwing the Play-Doh, it's not quite as fun. So yeah, that is true. I've never heard it called compassion fatigue, but I like that. But I feel like this really, I had an occupational therapist that was interested in taking my course, and she was talking about how it really aligns really well with occupational therapy, because what occupies the time of parents is parenting. And so to be able to help parents achieve their highest quality of life as a parent, I feel like it's really, really compatible with that. And so I feel like I'm even being an occupational therapist when I'm teaching the course. So that's great.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break.
We had many struggles. We have 3 kids under 5 years old, and we were just feeling very overwhelmed. We knew that there was a better way.
You can make yourself better. We really appreciated the opportunity to learn new tactics and new strategies. I think it's really improved our parenting abilities.
I think there's so many things that I catch myself doing all day long that, I can accredit to this program. I'm just very thankful. I'm very thankful that I have these tools and these skills, and I definitely feel like a better mom. We needed that accountability, and we needed that one-on-one guidance, because we had specific things that we really wanted to work through.
Get on the waitlist for Mindful Parenting at mindfulparentingcourse.com. That's mindfulparentingcourse.com. I heard your story about like how the struggle, and that was frustrating, but what is it about, you're in the teacher training now, what is it about mindful parenting that you feel like is helping people achieve their highest quality of life?
Well, I feel like, so even just at my 3rd session, I have parents like having these aha moments and having these just brilliant moments where they're able to problem solve and on the spot in a way that creates more peace and harmony in their lives. And so I even had one of my participants said her husband has noticed already. So this is 3 sessions in. We've done,
Wow.
3 hour-and-a-half long sessions, and her husband can already tell a difference. And so that's super validating for me, and super, it's just like really great to hear. Her husband said, I don't know what it is you're doing on Tuesday mornings, but keep on doing that. And then he's a teacher. And so he also said, I think I need this in my classroom. And that's like actually one of my biggest goals, is to have this information in the schools. And I haven't quite figured out which pathway I'm taking to get there, but that's one of my goals, is to help, teachers learn this so that they can teach children. And so I feel like if children had these skills, it would just make the world a better place. So
absolutely. And I know you studied conscious discipline. So is there overlap there? Is that something that goes into the schools?
my goal is to get it into the schools. It's not currently. I'm on the PTO, and we're working to raise funds to hopefully get conscious discipline trainers to come into the school. So that's something I'm working right now on. I've been in contact with conscious discipline and with the principal of the school and the PTO, and really trying to make that happen for my school. It's funny, my 3-year-old, my goal is that when he goes to school, he will have like, it'll be there for him, like already established, so that he will have like this whole life of this, these adults that really can regulate themselves. And so
that's cool.
That's one of my biggest goals right now.
All right. So what is conscious discipline?
So it's a social emotional learning curriculum, and it's a brain-based, so it's focused on the brain state model. And so their first thing, which exactly like your first module, is focusing on the brain state model and how, when the amygdala is hijacked by your triggers or your stress response, how you really can't do much. And so it starts with how to regulate the brain state. And then it moves on to connection. And so it goes into, feelings of connection and ways to promote connection, which I feel like goes with your work on compassion and loving kindness and, emotional deposits that you talk about, putting emotional deposits in your kid's bank. And then then the highest level is problem solving. So once you've got safety as a base, as a foundation, then you can move on to connection. And then once you feel well connected, then you can move on to problem solving. And so you use the problem solving with like the win-win problem solving and, lots of communication skills where you're, using iMessages and things to help you achieve those things so that you can have a harmonious relationship where you can solve your own problems and help kids solve their problems at the same time.
Lots of overlap there. I hadn't thought of it as a pyramid. I like that. I like that kind of visualization. That's very cool. I think of it as 3 overlapping circles in my mind it's like the mindfulness, and then self-regulate our emotions, then compassion, and then skillful communication. But that could be exactly what you described. There's a tremendous amount of overlap there. That's super cool.
Right. And it's hard to get to that place of compassion if you're like, it's totally triggered. It's hard to feel compassion when when everything's out of whack. So, and then the other thing I think that both models do, I think in mindful parenting, the first several modules are about the parent only. So you don't even talk about the kids until several sessions in. And that's similar with conscious discipline, that it's adult first. So you're implementing all those strategies and skills with yourself before you're ever trying to teach children or trying to solve a problem with a child. So
yeah, which is, of course, I think, as it should be, because we have to start with ourselves, right? We can't be expecting like you little one that is by definition immature and underdeveloped, you change so I can feel better. Can you go ahead and do that for me, please? Like that's not exactly the way it's going to work. But that's funny because that's kind of the way the old school methods are. Like, here, you change, and it's like you change your behavior so that I can feel better. I can feel more relaxed. It's interesting. So what brought you to the mindful parenting teacher training? So you're doing all this work. What brought you to the teacher training?
I felt like it seemed like the next logical step. And I felt like I had learned enough and I had benefited enough that I was really ready to share it with other people. And so I really wanted to be able to start sharing that and helping other people and spread it. So, and the other thing is that, what you strengthen in another person, you strengthen in yourself. Yes. And so it's been a perfect continuation of my journey, because then as I'm teaching these skills, I'm living them or trying to live them as best I can. And then when I fail, I'm having compassion for myself and trying again. And, I think the other day I was struggling with a situation with with one of my kids. And then I'm like, goodness, who am I to be teaching this? I feel like such a fraud, and I was like, I need to email Hunter and say, how many times can I lose it with my kids before I have to turn in my mindful parenting teacher card? And then I was just like, okay, forgive yourself. And then, move on. And then that was the session where my trainees were having all these results. So I was like, okay, we're still having these ripple effects, even if I still lost it with my child yesterday. So it's that self-compassion part has been really helpful, and also really helpful to revisit again and again. And I think that the teaching it will definitely help me to continue revisiting it again and again, so that I can hone the skills in my life with my children and everything else.
Amazing how strong and instant that stress response is, right? And it's like you teach about it, we know about it, and we practice, and you build that muscle. You've reduced it. I mean, and I've reduced my incredibly rapid, like intense temper over the years, but I still lose it sometimes at my kids. I lose it a little more skillfully. Now I'm like, I'm really angry right now. Ah! Or most of the time I would say. But yeah, I mean, everybody's imperfect, and we're not going to expect that perfection in ourselves. And I know that's something that you've been working with, right? Is the perfection achievement piece, right? Like being able to be okay with that good enough piece. Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break.
Say definitely do it. It's really helpful. It will change your relationship with your kids for the better. It will help you communicate better, and just, I'd say, communicate better as a person, as a wife, as a spouse. It's been really a positive influence in our lives. So definitely do it.
I'd say definitely do it. It's so worth it. The money really is inconsequential when you get so much benefit from being a better parent to your children and feeling like you're connecting more with them, and not feeling like you're yelling all the time, or you're like, why isn't things working? I would say definitely do it. It's so worth it. It'll change you.
No matter what age someone's child is, it's a great opportunity for personal growth, and it's a great investment in someone's family. I'm very thankful I had this.
You can continue in your old habits that aren't working, or you can learn some new tools and gain some perspective to shift everything in your parenting.
Are you frustrated by parenting? Do you listen to the experts and try all the tips and strategies, but you're just not seeing the results that you want? Or are you lost as to where to start? Does it all seem so overwhelming with too much to learn? Are you yearning for a community of people who get it, who also don't want to threaten and punish to create cooperation? Hi, I'm Hunter Clark-Fields, and if you answered yes to any of these questions, I want you to seriously consider the Mindful Parenting membership. You'll be joining hundreds of members who have discovered the path of mindful parenting and now have confidence and clarity in their parenting. This isn't just another parenting class. This is an opportunity to really discover your unique, lasting relationship, not only with your children, but with yourself. It will translate into lasting, connected relationships, not only with your children, but your partner too. Let me change your life. Go to mindfulparentingcourse.com to add your name to the waitlist, so you will be the first to be notified when I open the membership for enrollment. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. mindfulparentingcourse.com.
Definitely an ongoing battle. I didn't even ever think I was a perfectionist before I had kids. And then I realized, like, oh yeah, I've always been a perfectionist, and I'm even more so. I feel like parenting, I have to get this exactly right, preferably on the first try.
And then we can't. I used to get I get so frustrated with like when you're like, you have a baby and they tell you like the ages 1 to 3 are so like critical. And I'm just like, no, I've ruined my child forever because I was like losing it when they were 2. And it's not true. It's work that we can do at every single age. I was, just like there was a grandparent who was in my mindful parenting class in person that I taught a number of years ago. And she was in it for her 6-year-old grandchild. And she told me at the end, she got emotional, and she told me about how she healed her relationship with her adult daughter that had been really troubled for many years. And it was like, oh, wow, like that's amazing. So I don't know, for me, that was just, that was a real, some of those stories are like a real catalyst for me to move forward. Just like you were saying, like that here, seeing your parents' ahas was like giving you that energy to move forward, even if imperfectly.
Right. And my mother, she is definitely my biggest supporter in this work. And she, even when I call her stressed and crazed, then she'll say, Becky Bailey is the creator of conscious discipline. So she'll say, what would Becky Bailey say at this moment? or she'll even call me and ask about what would I say to a coworker that's doing this? How would I handle that? And so it's nice because she'll ask me and then she'll remind me and then ask me at the same time. So it's definitely been good for our relationship as well, for my mother and I. So I think we both benefit from this work.
That's cool. That's what, my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen Buddhist monk, he talks about as we change ourselves, we change, as we sit and breathe peacefully, like we sit and breathe for all our ancestors and all the generations to come. And I always thought that was kind of like, really like a very, like kind of like a more, philosophical or spiritual vision of that. But what you're describing is a very like real concrete realization of that, as you do this work, you're doing it for, your mother is in you, doing it with you and talking to you about it. And then your kids are there with you, which is, feeling the effects of all your changes too, which is so cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And on that note, I tell a story. My husband and I did Mindful Parenting, the online course, together the first time I did it. And I think he meditated one time. And so he meditated one time and then he was calm for about, I say 6 months after. He kept his calm for a long time after. And I was so annoyed because I was like, well, that's just easy. And then I kind of dropped off the meditation practice for a little while. And then I started doing another one of your programs. And so then I picked it back up. And I told my husband, I was like, oh, I'm starting this again. And do you remember that time you meditated once and then you were calm for a really long time? I was like, maybe you should try that. And then he never got around to it. But then all of a sudden he was calm again. And I realized that my meditation practice was helping him to be calm. And I was like, wow, he's getting all these benefits. And I shared that story in my course. And one of my participants the next week said, my husband was totally calmer the next week. So there's definitely some sort of effect of, breathing for other people. It's really, I think that's really true that, and I've definitely seen it for myself in my own house, that when I take the time to do that for myself, that my husband sees the benefits and therefore I get more benefits from it. So it's really makes it more worth it, more bang for your buck, right?
A virtuous circle. Yeah. I mean, because he feeds off your energy just as you feed off his energy. You're probably like, you don't realize how you're benefiting from his like superhuman innate calm that he just naturally has. But I love that you could like see him benefiting from yours. So that's really cool. I love that. What are your other takeaways from going through the teacher training or mindful parenting in general?
Yeah, I think now that I feel like I've started and stopped meditation enough, I feel like I can really see the benefits of a consistent practice and how that's helpful to my life. And then definitely the self-compassion piece and the loving kindness is definitely one of my favorite pieces of mindful parenting, where you're wishing other people well. And that's also very aligned with conscious discipline, because they teach kids to wish well. And so you put a hand on your heart and take a deep breath and kind of like send all your good positive vibes to another person. And so it's very, it's totally aligned with that. And I find that's one of the tools I would say I use the most, is that loving kindness piece of sharing that, and all kinds of places, when you drive past a homeless person and you don't even have time to stop and you don't even know what you would do if you could, that's a time I use that loving kindness. Or, in the grocery store, or with a difficult child when I'm working at my job, and when I feel annoyed, like I just, feel like it's really something I used all the time. When my husband's, when I feel annoyed with him, and then I can just use that tool. So that's one of my favorite tools for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I think that more and more I realize that like our mindfulness practice like gives us this clear seeing and this ability to like expand our window of tolerance and like resilience for all these different things, right? Like we can feel the feelings in our body with less like freaking out about them, like, oh my God. We can feel the feelings in our body. We can see the thoughts in our mind. We can start to like, it's this incredible ability to see and be aware of what's happening and to be able to tolerate what's happening. But the human baseline is kind of negative, right? Kind of critical, a little anxious, right? Because that's just the survival brain is like critical and anxious so that you can survive, right? Always looking out for danger and stuff like that. And so our mindfulness helps to like see and tolerate all of that. But I think more and more like the practice of loving kindness, the practice of wishing ourselves well, wishing others well, affirmations, the gratitude practices, all of those, as we start to kind of like, we can start to really, personally anyway, I can start to really feel the sort of shift in my brain as I can consciously choose something a thought that feels better, or and interrupt and see those things that are kind of leading me down a darker road and then turn them around now, which is really kind of exciting for me. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited for you. You have 5 more classes of your practicum as we record this, and everybody in Mount Pleasant, Texas will have an amazing mindful parenting teacher that you can call her, email her. Who calls someone up these days? You can email Carrie and you can organize your own mindful parenting class and teach the parents in the schools and all of that. That's so exciting, Carrie. Are you, is there anything we missed that we should bring forward, or anything you want to say to the listener as we start to close up?
Not that I can think of. I don't think so.
Okay. And for the person who is not in Mount Pleasant, Texas, and they're like you, who is like, I don't know about this. Maybe my kids need some threats of removing their screen time or a good spanking. And this whole mindful parenting thing, I'm not quite sure about it. And I have a lot of doubts. What would you say to that person?
For me, the research that backs it all up is the thing that always helps me continue, even when it's hard. That this is the science proves that these techniques are effective, and they're more effective for helping this relationship and more effective for, ultimately getting the things that we want for our kids, right? In the long run, we want kids who are kind and compassionate. And I feel like these techniques are much more effective at creating a kind, compassionate child, and thus a kind, compassionate world, than punishments and threats are. So,
yeah, you gotta go back to the science. Thank you for that. And Carrie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your story. And you guys, if you were listening only, you should check out the YouTube clips and see like the beautiful, amazing wallpaper Carrie has behind her, because I just love it. And soon everyone in Texas will be able to reach out to Carrie too. So thank you so much for coming on today and talking.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm so glad we got to share this great conversation with you. If you are interested in the Mindful Parenting Teacher Training, if you want to bring the Mindful Parenting course to your community, maybe you're a teacher, a therapist, a doula, maybe you're just passionate about parenting, then you might be perfect for this training program. It's 5-month intensive. It can be done from anywhere around the world when we're enrolling now. It gives you everything you need to bring mindful parenting to your community. So to learn about it and apply for a spot in the program, go to mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. That's mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here for this special bonus episode. I'm so glad that we could offer this episode for you. I'm so excited for Tuesday's podcast. We're going to be talking to an amazing author, Ethan Kross. We're talking about befriending that voice in your head. So be sure you are here around for this episode on Tuesday. And hey, listen, if you got something out of this episode, I'd love to see, if you loved it, just go ahead and share it. Share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me at Mindful Mama Mentor, and I will give you a shout out there. We can connect. That's the beauty of the social medias. So thank you so much for listening, my friend. So glad to connect with you. Can't wait to talk to you in a few days for Ethan Kross's episode. And I'm wishing you a beautiful weekend and all of those things. Take care, my friend. Namaste.